Welcome to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Maupin. I believe every man has the potential to push past his limits and strive for something greater. Whether you're a former athlete who is looking for what's next, a professional pushing through the daily grind, or someone simply ready to break through life's toughest challenges, if you're ready to step into the pursuit of something more, your pursuit begins now. All right, welcome back to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Maupin, and today we have Jimmy Francis joining us. So Jimmy, before we dive into your story, a few sports questions. First one, favorite all-time sports team?
Whoa, now, you know that I'm a theater guy and I wasn't a sports guy, but I will say my favorite all-time sports team has to be the St. Paul Saints because it's so much fun to go watch a game and participate in all their hijinks. It's one of the best teams around.
Hey, they're a great draw. I agree. St. Paul Saints. Favorite all-time player, any sports?
There again, I'm digging deep, but I have to say off the top of my head, Neil Broughton is my all-time favorite because I've in recent years have met him and became friendly with Neil. And the guy is just a down-to-earth guy for somebody that holds as many titles as he holds and the accolades that he's done. He's just a great American.
All right, love it. All right, and last one. One quick highlight of growing up.
I grew up with 10 brothers and sisters. There's 11 of us kids. And so I think my highlight continues today with our family vacations. So my parents worked really hard to raise us all, and they afforded us to go on a family vacation every year to the lake, some lake in Minnesota, and we still continue that tradition. So that's one of my favorites, is thinking back to all those lake adventures we've had.
Love it. Hey, and that leads right into you growing up in South St. Paul with a family of 11, right?
Yeah.
And I believe you were the 10th child and the 7th son, I believe. So share with us and the listeners some of the successes and challenges along that journey.
You left out that I'm also mom's favorite. And if you ask her, she'll tell you. It depends on what kid is you're asking about, but she will tell you whatever.
I love it.
It is. Gosh, growing up, it was just a joy. I think back to that. We've had some off conversations, you and I, about growing up and my family and the joy that we had of just going out and playing together. And sure, we had fights, and sure, we had older brothers, older sisters, envies, and all that stuff, and stealing toys and all the things that happen in families. But I think overall, we grew up in such a good environment that today we're all really good and close friends, and when we talk almost every day. I've actually had to mute my phone today because my parents, we're on a text chain with my 10 brothers and sisters and my dad. My mom doesn't want to be on it because there's just too many, and dad relays everything to them. But what we're texting about today is our Christmas present to my parents was a gift to them for in a couple of weeks. The 11 plus 2 is what we call it. 11 plus 2 are getting together for an overnight at my brother's house, just my mom and dad and just the kids. And we're going to have pajamas and watch some old family movies and just spend quality time with mom and dad and our brothers and sisters. And, when your parents are 86 and 85 years old, what do they need? They don't need much. They just want us to be around. And we're so blessed to have them in our lives still and healthy. And that could change at any minute. If people, senior citizens, one fall, one slip and one crash is the difference between 6 months of being around and dying too soon sometimes. So we've thankfully not had that. And we've thankfully are able to, again, we get along where we want to be together. We want to go and have the time with mom and dad, and we put some brothers and sisters, they might have their political and things and talks and discussions, but we're able to put all those aside all the time, even Christmas, Thanksgiving, anytime we get together, we don't dwell on those things. Sometimes some good ribbing happens, but overall we can put all that aside, and we're just blessed to be together and still a functional group. And when we get all of us together, then those family vacations I referenced, there's 55 of us now. So when 55 of us get together, it's the same thing. We just We love the cuzzy time. We love the learning and catching up with what everybody's doing and supporting each other and also helping. Like we, not in the support of financial, but helping find jobs and letters of recommendations and learnings. We learn so much from each other that it's just awesome. Podcasts that we listen to, and I'll be sharing this with my family, but all of those little things that you get from brothers and sisters that just make life better. And I think, again, my parents led by example growing up. And that's been one of the greatest lessons of life is watching my mom and dad just do life.
What a gift, the gift to your parents. It's for all the brothers and sisters. Hey, we're all their sons and daughters are just their focus is on their parents. That is so cool.
Yeah. Sometimes the outlaws throw a wrench in the mix, and we're all well aware of that. So we help and support each other and our spouses. When the outlaw, our spouse is the one that's throwing the monkey wrench in, we work together to calm it all down. And again, we can get together with a family of 55 for a week's vacation and just enjoy it.
That's amazing. Now, share with the listeners about your decision. I know you attended St. Cloud State for a short period of time, and then eventually I know you attended Brown Institute and Broadcasting School. And why broadcasting and some of those kind of highlights and maybe challenges along the way?
Being a younger male in our family, I'll say we're not the brightest kids. We've got a lot of stick-to-itiveness, but none of us are doctors and lawyers. We're all working class stiffs, so to speak. And so I was not gifted with brains. I was gifted with family and love and creativity. Like I said, I was a theater guy. And so when I went to St. Cloud State, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I went and I wasn't really great at school. So number one, I had to pay for everything. My parents always made sure we had books and food. And so they covered that first, but we were responsible for the rest of it. So that meant I had to have a job. I had to have a job and I had to study extra hard because again, I wasn't born with the smarts. So that I was in the deficit mode from day one. And so as I was going through the motions there at St. Cloud State and trying to figure out what it is I wanted, I excelled in a few things, but really decelerated in a couple others. And procrastination is a problem I've had my whole life. And so I learned early within probably the first quarter that this wasn't for me. And then I tried to figure out for the next 2 quarters how I was going to get out of it and what my plan was, because back then you could go back home and that was failure didn't matter, but the old man always pushed a piece of paper. I got to come home, Dad and Mom, and that's fine. And he pushed a piece of paper in front of you and said, "Okay, what's your plan, and when are you leaving?" So he made us write that down and put it into writing. And so I knew that coming home. And what led me to broadcasting was on my way home, I was actually in tears, crying, driving home thinking, how am I going to tell my parents that I'm dropping out of school and I got to get a job, but just so overwhelming of all those things. And I was driving by KSTP, the big tower. And if you know the Twin Cities anywhere, you're going down 94 and 280. It's right there at the interchange. And so I saw that and a light went off in my head because our neighbor was the director of purchasing for KSTP. So I pulled on my way from school, St. Cloud State, I pulled into KSTP. I went to the front lobby. I called for Bruce was his name. And Bruce came down and goes, "Jimmy, what are you doing?" And I said, "Hey, I'm dropping out of school and my dad, and I got to come up with a plan. And I'm wondering if there's any jobs here." And he said, "You know what? Show up on Monday." This was like Thursday or Friday. He says, "Show up on Monday next week and we'll find something for you." So I was able to go home that day and tell my parents that I was dropping out of school, but I had a job. I'm going to work for KSTP with Bruce. And I got hired. Bruce was director of purchasing, so he was in charge of the building maintenance and the grounds and those kinds of things. So I got a job basically as a gopher. And that was my first job at KSTP, is cutting grass and delivering mail and whatever they needed, I did. And because I was a clean cut kid, meaning my hair was short and I dressed in a polo shirt and was presentable, I actually was asked often to drive Mr. Hubbard. And that's a big deal because the guy's a billionaire, the owner. And so I got to drive with him, and I learned early that he's not my friend. I was told that there's private stuff that's getting talked in here, and he doesn't want to know about your day. And just drive the car, say yes, say no, yes or no, sir. Just do what he tells you to do. And I learned over time driving him. And it wasn't every day. He didn't have a driver every day. He drove himself a lot. But sometimes you go downtown Minneapolis or to the U of M or over to the country club, and we'd sit and wait for him while they had lunch and pick him up, drop him off. And there was always moments where he would ask something or he would allow us a question. And so I started to, my favorite is that day that I was driving with him, he's sitting in the front seat and he said, he said, so what's new? Or he asked me, engage me in the convo. And I said, I was wondering how you get into radio. And he looked at me and he says, how do you get into radio? And he picked up the phone off the dash because that's where they were at the time. And he calls his daughter, Ginny, and he says, hi, Ginny, it's your dad. Yeah, I'm driving with Jimmy Francis. He's in the shop. Yeah, he wants to know how to get into radio. And he hands the phone to me, who I'm driving, and I'm driving a billionaire, and I'm holding the phone, and she laughs and says, hey, Jimmy, my dad says you're looking to get into radio. When you're not driving my dad, just give me a call and come see me. And I did that. And I was able to then transition. And my first radio job was being a board op, which is like the backside of radio, running the board, answering the phones, putting callers through, screening calls, and making sure commercials play. For my first job was with Barbara Carlson. And I don't know if many of you remember Barbara. She had a morning show. And so she had a producer and I was just the board op. And the producer said to me one day, he said, before we started, he said, now, Jimmy, Barbara screams for a Diet Coke the same way she screams as if she's being murdered. So don't let that bother you. Don't take it personal. Just roll with the punches. And immediately my first break, she was screaming in this ear. I'm trying to listen to the commercials in the left ear and trying to do all the stuff. And if he had not said that, I probably would have panicked and probably would have said, I don't know. But I was very fortunate to be able to, again, ask for the opportunity and receive an opportunity. And, that projected me. Then I was going to Brown Institute. I finished Brown Institute with a 2-year degree. And then because my dad raised 11 salespeople. He did not raise 11 children. We were all sales. And so if we didn't go to school, it was go sell something. Or if you were whatever, it was always go sell something. So we had paper routes and so much stuff. And so when I was finished school, the recruiter at the school said, what list do you want to be on? I said, what do you mean? He goes, do you want to be on the DJ list or the sales list? I said, who's on the DJ list? He said, everybody. Nobody's on the sales list. I said, well, put me on the sales list. And so I got a job even before I graduated down in a town called Tama, Iowa. And I was hired right out of school. I became a salesman, and I quickly moved to sales manager. And then I quickly moved to general manager of the radio station. And then from there, I moved on to another radio station where I was the general manager of the radio station and started that one. Both of those, the first one in Tama, Iowa, was a brand new station, just had a piece of paper and I was the first hire. And then the second one was another one where I was the first hire and I hired everybody else. And it was a frequency that had a piece of paper, a license, and we were able to start a radio station. And so I was part of that, integral part of those two operations, starting up from nothing and creating a radio stations. And it was just a ton of fun and so much learning that I learned during that time.
And then you kind of eventually you moved back to the Twin Cities, correct? And I believe.
Back to KSP.
Yeah, that's right. Share with the listeners as a mascot. And then the many roles, we talked about this a few weeks ago at KTSB and as a radio voice and some of the highlights and maybe some of the challenges along the way.
So again, thankfully I left on good terms when I got my job in Iowa after graduating. So when I came back, naturally, Bruce said, yeah, we'll take you back. I don't have a radio job for you. I said, that's fine. I just want to be back in it and have a job. And so I started back, and again, because of my clean cut appearance and my abilities, I was put on the phones, answering phones and being the operator for a while. And that got me involved and connected with some of the people, both in the TV side and the radio side. And one day, the promotions director from Channel 45, there's a new TV station that they started at that time. And she said, hey, gosh, you've got such great energy. Would you ever want to join my promotions team? And I said, sure. And so I got a job doing that. And they had this new mascot, and character was just a TV box. And I filled it, and I did it so well that I was their number one. We had 3 or 4 people that were doing the job because I couldn't make everything. But I was the number one mascot at the time and would go and do such fun promotions and parades and ribbon cuttings and all the things that happen with TV stations. And one I think I shared with you before was I was in mascot sports. So they would get all the mascots together to play mascot basketball and mascot baseball. So I was down on the dome floor being the catcher for the mascot team that I was on. And if you can imagine a TV and the arms go out the side, that's how I was. So I really couldn't touch anything. I couldn't touch my chest, or it was all outside. So I was able to block the ball with my chest, and then I'd grab it with my right arm and I'd throw it. And I was more mobile and I could see more than most others. So I was able to assist in some plays and have some fun there. And again, that's the kind of the job back then where I just did whatever they needed. And then I excelled again. I got back into radio. They had an opening in the sales department, and I went back there. And then as I was doing the sales, they needed some voice work. And so I did a little voice work, and I create these characters for the on-air staff. Ripped from the headlines, they'd have a guy found $1 million in gold coins out in the field, and we need you to be this guy. And so then I'd write up a little outline of who he was. And then we never practiced it. We would all do it live. It was always live. And so I would just be that character, and then they'd ask me questions and I'd respond. And so then again, I built up a reputation for them to have some fun and create these characters. And I still do that today. I still get calls from Joe Souchere on Garage Logic, from Chad Hartman on WCCO, from Adam Carter on WCCO, and I don't get the calls from KS95 anymore, but I still prank call them. And I listen to the radio, and then I'll create something and I'll call in and I'll get on the air. And so it's my little, nobody knows it's me. So it's easy and it's fun, and all of it's above board. It's all creative and entertainment, because that was the one thing Mr. Hubbard told me in the car one time. He says, you know what, this Rush Limbaugh was on, and he turned it off and he goes, you know what this guy is? And I said, a talk show host? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, you know what else he is? And I'm like, I don't know. Is he he's a conservative? He goes, yeah, none of that matters. He's an entertainer. This is entertainment. And that really stuck with me, that radio is really about entertainment and creating the things and making people either be engaged or pick up the phone to call or be the next caller was really part of what we did on the performance side of things. And I was happy to play a small role in that. And again, it's fun, and I didn't make a lot of money, but I did make a lot of great friends that are still friends today. And it really helped me with my current world.
And you think of that, like impromptu speaking, how hard that is for a lot of people. You just be able to be asked a question, be able to speak.
Yeah. And again, that comes from my theater background, I believe. My love of theater, my love of performance, and getting into those characters. And I mean, we're going to get to it, but I'm a mayor of a city, and it's a part-time job. Our cities aren't like big Minneapolis, big time St. Paul. We're just a little 20,000 city. And so our city administrator does all the work. But when I got this role, I treated it as a role. And, my character is actually the mayor. And what does the mayor do? And how does the mayor perform? And how does the mayor act? And what is the mayor supposed to do? And so I've created that, and I've maintained that role now for quite some years. And it's fun in regards of being a spotlight, but it's also difficult because you have to meet people and talk to people and meet them at their level, which again, not everybody can do that. And I try to do it with grace. I try to do it with humility, and again, with respect, and as that role, because that's how it was raised.
Now, share with the listeners about stepping into that role. Now I think you've been in that role now I think you're in your third term, is it? As the mayor of South St. Paul. And then share with us also about your profession, the insured partners, I believe it is.
Yeah, I'm an insurance professional with Assured Partners. We are a broker, insurance broker. My specialty, my vertical is employee benefits. And so I'm a people person. I help people. I'm a problem solver. And so my role is to help people, not only my customers, but their employees, to understand their benefits, know how to do it, do open enrollments, and manage their programs. And I was doing that. And one of our former police chiefs, I was stumping for another guy in town to be the mayor, because our mayor was going to retire. And because of my background in radio and TV, I was in comedy. I did some comedy too, was not really a serious guy. And so I never thought myself, but because I was in business and I was in the Rotary Club and I was connected with the festival and creating my career, that he sought me out, this police chief, and said, I hear you're stumping for him, but I think you should do it. You should really consider it because of your family, your history here in town, your ethics, your morals, all of those things. You'd make a great mayor. And I thought, really? And then I asked my wife, and my wife said, yeah. And if my wife is supportive, then that's the green light to go pursue whatever. And so that's what I did. I had no experience. It was nothing else. It was an open seat. And so I went out and campaigned and I won by 60% of the vote. I was against an incumbent council member who had at that time decades of experience in the city. I won, and he and I still work together. He's still on our council working on now. He's working on 40 years of being a council member, but we work well together. And he learned that I wasn't after him. I wasn't after anything else other than doing a good job for my city and making that happen. And in our city, again, we have a city administrator who does all the day-to-day operations. I'm merely, I like to say, ceremonial. I'm the spokesperson. I am the guy that runs the meeting, and my main job is to run our meetings so that Robert's Rules of Orders are followed and that we start on time, we end on time, and everybody's in an orderly fashion and business gets done. And so I've been doing that. I just won my third term. So I'm on for another 4 years, which is going to be 12 at the end of that. Did I think I would ever be here? No. Did I think I would ever do 2 terms? No. Did I ever think I would do 3 terms? No. But here I am, and people believe in me and people appreciate me. And my great-grandfather was the mayor of my town of South St. Paul in 1906. And then my grandmother, his daughter-in-law, was the city treasurer because my grandfather had passed away unexpectedly. He was a fireman, and he passed away unexpectedly. We never met him, but my grandma then had to be the city. She got elected to be the city treasurer, and she served in that role for over 25 years. And so we have a family history of being civil servants, working for our community. My brother's a police chief. My other brother's a police reserve. So we have this, my dad's a civil service representative. So we just have this kind of giving attitude, and we give to get. And so that's how that all came together. And it works really well with my job because I'm able to flex my time and do things. And I try to make Mondays like today, doing our podcast together. I try to do all the mayor stuff on a Monday because that's our day, and kind of put it in that. And then I'll take calls and do things whenever possible and call people back and fit them in. But it's not really taxing for my time as much as my day job as employee benefits, being that expert and being on call for my customers. So that's my A job. And then my B job is the mayor of South St. Paul.
All right. Mayor Francis, share with the listeners about just the impact of this annual retreat you go to. I think you've been doing it for 29 years and the impact that it's had on you throughout the years and kind of the relationship that you have with God.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. And that came up organically. And again, in our conversations, Roger, you and I, you didn't ask, I just shared it, that was something that I've done. That's actually happening this weekend. It's going to be my 29th consecutive. So I've made 28 silent retreats. And it's the one thing that I've done in my life consistently for the longest. I've been married for almost 18 years to my wife. We have two children, 17 and 15. And it's really helped me. It's grounded me. And I learned this from my dad. Now, when we were growing up, my dad would go on these retreats. I've made more than him because he retired and he stopped going. He would come home from these retreats and we'd get these little letters from him. And they were about studying in school and being a good kid and doing all those things. But it stuck with me. And then when I turned 17, I was invited to go to the retreat and I went. And my dad, that was actually the first year my dad didn't go. And so I made a bunch of retreats without my dad. My brothers have gone, and it's a men's retreat. It's a silent retreat. And it allowed me opportunity to focus on what's important, which is my relationship with God and his son, Jesus, and our path to get to him, to get to God is only through Jesus. And the remarkable feeling that I have received from the Holy Spirit in this whole process, that the Holy Spirit is a God, the Trinity, as many people know, they all have different things. And I feel that the Holy Spirit has always guided me to make the right decisions, to be there to honor God, but also go through Jesus to get to God. And so my relationship with God is pretty strong. I know where I'm going when I die. And if I were to die unexpectedly, I have no fears of that because of my relationship with God. But those retreats really have made me a better husband, a better son, a better father, a brother, coworker. those things all, the retreat house always tries to talk to you about the cumulative effect. The more you do these things, the better you are. And it really is true. I've gotten better at this. I've gotten less anxious about things, and I'm able to navigate all of those things through my faith and just putting my faith in God, that no matter what comes in front of us, we'll be able to face it. We'll be able to tackle it. And it's worked so far, but we're not out yet. And that's the passion that I have in continuing that, is that it makes me better, and it makes me a better dad, makes me a better husband. And so that's really what I've really embraced in that. And we're Catholic, but you don't need to be Catholic to go. You just need to spend the time and be dedicated to it. And it's been wonderful.
You just said it right there, from the purpose of Men Pursuing More. Become better fathers, husbands, community leaders, and just really make an impact. We're not first with your family, but with your community, and that can lead to further out in the community, and that can lead to the entire city, and then can lead to the entire state. So that's the purpose of this Men Pursuing More. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I appreciate you being on, having me on.
I appreciate you. So let's get to it. I know we want to kind of wrap this up. And so just some final thoughts. I know you've shared a lot with some advice, some influential people. So if you can just share with us, wrapping this up in the next few minutes, a few final thoughts you want to leave with men as they continue on their journey, personally, professionally. A lot of times I put it together. And any kind of shout outs or any other people you'd like to acknowledge these last couple minutes.
Yes. So what I've learned over the years is being a good listener. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so I've put that into practice, again, with my radio career, with my insurance career, with my mayor duties, that I listen before I speak. And I guess if I could impose upon anybody else that we all have challenges in life, we all have struggles, we all have triumphs. But if you break it down to listening to those, you listen for the opportunities, you listen when there's challenges to find creative solutions to get out of those challenges. And I guess that would be, some men, even women, don't have a relationship like I have with God, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit. And sometimes they're just not listening. And if I can impress upon anybody to just quiet their mind and quiet themselves and be open to that, I think they'll find that like good things can come from that. And we're not all going to be millionaires, and we don't need all those things. If we're a good person, if we're a good family person, a good spouse, all of those things involve listening and being that. And my wife and I always joke that we play the lottery just for fun because we like to dream, but we're never going to win the lottery because we've won the lottery in life. We've won just by having health, by having our parents, by having a great relationship with my brothers and sisters and my kids. That's really winning in life. And that's really, again, that's more of a reward than any money, any bonus checks, any limousines or fame that comes with any of that stuff. Life is short. And if we listen, we'll be able to guide through it without too many hiccups. And I guess that would be my words of advice to people, is just take the time to listen and quiet yourself. Sometimes you need to be quiet down so that you can hear it.
Jimmy, thank you so much. Where can listeners find you and follow your story?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn. Please, I'd love friends. I love people. So find me on LinkedIn, Jimmy Francis, JimmyFrancis. I also have a blog, a website called ilovessp.com, and that SSP stands for South St. And so you can find parts of me there. I've shared some of my creative stuff, and you can find me on LinkedIn or that site. Also, I'm not afraid to take a phone call. 651-321-8348 is my cell phone. Text, call. I'd be happy to take your call and talk, or if I can't take it or talk, I can always call you back.
Awesome. That's a wrap with Jimmy Francis. I want to thank you for being part of Men Pursuing More podcast.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for listening to Men Pursuing More podcast. Don't forget to follow us at maupincoaching.com.